Knowledge is not enough. What you need to do is take knowledge, see what you can use from the knowledge so you can better define who you are, and then from there, see how far you can master your life and what you can do with that knowledge. So, welcome to my podcast. This is Alain Faber, and I've been a teacher for more than 25 years. And I have this podcast to share ideas from people I talk to during the day, students, and also the news. The idea here is I want all of us as part of the community to become a better contributor to our society. So on this, let's make sure that we have some sound for everybody. We have the sound, so let's double check. So if you're new to my podcast, I always divide the podcast in three parts. One is about the learner's perspective. The second is about the teacher's perspective. And then I talk about the leader's perspective. So tonight's podcast is about the three words that I have in French that I'm trying as much as I can to share it in English with you. And the three words is about knowledge, or it's about knowing. And the three words goes like this. One is about knowing about knowledge, knowing about facts so that you can become better at your craft. Second is it's knowing who you are, because it's good to have all kind of knowledge. But if you cannot better define who you are as a person and use that knowledge to make your life and life of others better, then you need to revisit why that is. So there's knowing who you are, and the other one here is knowing what to do with that knowledge. So what the reason for that is that sometimes we know a lot about information, but it doesn't mean that we really know what to do with the information. So these are the perspective I have for you today. So we're going to look at the learner's perspective to start with. That's my first segment, and it goes like this. So when you have students and learners, so here it could be people going at elementary school, learners in high school, could be in university, college, in apprenticeship, it could even be someone starting a new job. What happens is that when you start something new, when you have new opportunities, you end up learning different things. So here, what's interesting is that sometimes there is a few parts about knowing about what you have to do. First one is that you know of the topic, or you know of the job you need to do. So just knowing of something doesn't mean that you're going to do anything great with it, because I know a lot of, so my knowledge of, let's see, mechanics is not the best, and that's why I would never be a great mechanic. However, there's something else where you can know of something, but then you can know about something. So knowing about a topic makes you more knowledgeable. So for example, I know about cars. I know about my car. So I can fix a few things. I can be there for it. I cannot be there for every cars. I'm not a mechanic. However, I know enough about those cars. So that brings me to the fact that, okay, just knowing knowledge, knowing of something, about something, is just a superficial perspective about knowledge. So if you're learning something new at school or in your workplace, you have to keep in mind that knowledge is just information. And information is amazing. However, there's a lot of information in books, on the internet, and knowing about everything doesn't mean that you will succeed. And the reason for that is that there's a difference between knowing or knowledge and actually being able to apply that knowledge so that you can create something. So that is a big question here. Because in the last couple of days, I've been doing labs in my science class. And what's interesting here is that my students know, they know of a lot of things. They know about a lot of things too. But sometimes when we put them in a situation when they have to do something, then fun things are happening. Because what I've noticed in high school anyway, is that students know so many things. They know about a lot of topics. They know of different scientific concepts. And the reason for that is that they've been raised with videos. Videos are there, podcasts are there, so they are aware of information. On the other hand, sometimes when you put them in a situation where they have to use that knowledge, then it becomes more challenging. because it is reassuring to know about topics, to tell people about what you know. But when you have to actually sit down and use that knowledge to create something or do something different, then it makes it, I think, more fun, but also it makes it more challenging. And it is, I think, what people need to do to better define who they are. So we're doing a lab on, in the last couple of days, it was on density. And interestingly enough, so we had to use with scales, we had to use with water as well for water displacement. And what happened here is that it's interesting because when you explain to the students what they have to do, in their mind, they say, okay, I know what they have to do. They say, okay, I know what I have to do. There's no worries. But once you put the equipment in their hands and then they realize, okay, I know what I have to do. I know what I need to do. However, I don't necessarily know how to do that. So there's a disconnect sometimes. And I think the disconnects come from the fact that often people don't play enough with their environment. When I was younger, we used to play outside often. And what happened here, we played with the water hose, we played in water, in lakes, we went to the beach, and so on. So what happened is that water was often what was around us. However, in the last few years since COVID, people stayed more inside. People enjoy videos more than doing hands-on activities. So therefore, more and more, less and less people have had a chance to play. And I can see that in labs. I'm not saying that they cannot do it, but it takes sometimes a little bit more work, a little bit more time for them to feel comfortable with what they have to do. And it's nice to see. I know that doing labs takes time to prepare. Doing labs makes students uncomfortable for a little bit because they're doing something they've never done. But it is 1,000% better than doing simulation or watching a video. Because there's a lot to say about knowing of a topic or knowing about a topic. But if you've never had a chance to apply it, then what happens is that you're missing a part that makes it that you can better define who you are as a person. Because the best way to get to know you is, yes, to know about topics, but you get to know yourself by experiencing your environment, experiencing new learning, experiencing discussion with friends to make it work. And the other thing I love about labs is that it gives a chance for students to do hands-on activities away from their device, away from their safety of their desk, and then they have to do something. So we did the lab the last couple of days. There've been water all over the place, which was clean so that nobody slipped, but a lot of learning did happen. And many of them, you could see how their confidence got better. You saw for some of them how the leadership skills happen, because as part of a group, then you can share ideas on how to do data collection in different ways. And this is what I think science is all about. I think this is how we better define who we are as a human. And if you're part of a team for working for a company, keeping in mind that the more you can work with your team, the more you can experience, the more you can better define who you are as a team, the better it is as well. Because once you have knowledge and you know of the topic and about the topic, second, you need to do the hands-on activities and experience the knowledge so you have a better definition of who you are as a human, but also within the environment. And the last one is about mastery. The only way to be on your journey to master any skills is you actually have to do it. In order to do something, to take action, you need to get to know yourself enough to trust yourself so that you define yourself better over and over again. And often in my students, I've noticed if you take the last 5 years compared to 10 years before, I do realize that students need more hands-on activity. They need more experience where they're present, where they have to do something, where they need to take risks, where sometimes they're not quite sure what will be the outcome as long as they are safe, but taking risk and trusting themselves that learning is possible. Success is very possible, and failure can be in times inevitable, because failure is the best way in some places to learn what to do next and be better So I think this is something important for students. Now, for teachers, that's my second segment. If you're a teacher, it works the same way. There's a lot of teachers that know a lot of information. I've met people that they're specialists in their topics, either for the cooking school in as mechanics. I also have met amazing people that had PhDs teaching in high school, for example. But what's interesting is that when they bring the knowledge in a group, what they realize is that to know your knowledge and therefore be a master of what you know does not necessarily make you a teacher where you feel that you know the students, you know how to take care of them, and also to master the craft of teaching. And the reason for that is that knowing the knowledge that you need to teach is one thing. If you are a manager of a team, to know what you have to do is not enough to make sure that the group will be focusing on the same outcome. So let's see. So once you have knowledge, you go to teachers college, you also learn about teaching. So you know of the different theories of teaching. You also know about teenagers, you know about curriculum, you know about a lot of things. But when you go to your first job, the first thing you need to do is you're put in a situation where you have all that knowledge of the world. However, you haven't put it in practice in an education um, setting. So that means that in your mind, you have how a lesson will go. But when you put humans, students of all ages in your classroom, then you realize that sometimes what you visualize would happen is not necessarily what is necessarily happening. And the reason for that is that once you know your topic, you need to feel comfortable so that you can better define who you are as a teacher in a classroom. And it took me years to get to know that, probably more than a decade as well, because I'm a geologist by trade. I love science. I teach science. It's amazing. However, when I started, what was the most important for me was my topic. But then over the years, what happened is that I realized that my topic, the science topic, was amazing. Or when I taught French or geography or history. But what happened is that I realized that teaching French is, if I have a chance to get to know my class, to get to know the students, to build to create a learning environment within the classroom. So what happened is that as much as I want to share with them the new ideas and knowledge from the curriculum, the more they're sharing with me their perspective on how things are. So teaching is the best way to improve how you define yourself as a human, but also as a teacher. Now, I do know that as a teacher, you're playing a role. So that means that who you are at school, the role of a teacher may be a bit different than your role in your own personal life. And that's perfectly fine. The idea here is that to define who you are as a teacher so that you are there for your students, so that they feel comfortable. So it's not the idea of knowing of students and about students, is to actually be with them so that you have an idea of who you are and who they are. And that's why I've been teaching for more than 25 years. And every year, every semester, the environment is different. The learning is different. The excitement is different. So people say, well, you've been teaching the same thing forever. Well, that is true, but it always has been different. So this semester, I'm teaching 3 classes of grade 9 students. So that means that 3 classes teach science for students that are about 14, 15 years old. So you see, well, it's the same group of students, same town, same topics, same room. So how can it be different? Well, the personalities are different. Their perspective is different. Their experience is different. Because keep in mind that as a teacher, it's not you providing a learning experience. It's you guiding everybody, yourself and the students, to create a learning environment for everybody. Because in business, we say that often, that if a client or here a student feel understood, then they'll be there for you. They'll be there to share with the class. They'll be there to learn with you. And the next step is, if you want to master your craft as a teacher, it's not just teaching, because people say, well, teaching is a skill that you can get better. That's very true. But on top of improving your skills as a teacher, there's pedagogy, new ways of teaching. Like, the internet was not available in classes when I started teaching in 1999. The classrooms are completely different. So here, new knowledge comes in, new perspective comes in. People, the demography is changing in an area. So you have to keep in mind that if you want to master your craft, you need to be aware of who you are, to know your topic, and you need to know more than just knowing of something or knowing about a topic. You actually need to live the knowledge so you can be there for others. So that's my perspective on this one with respect to the teacher's perspective. Now, my third segment about leadership. Now, here it's a bit different than learners and teachers. So let's see what I have here for you. So first of all, leaders, regardless if you are a leader in a school, in your classroom, as a parent, in your family, could be in your community, in your company. Maybe it is your company or you're part of a team. The whole thing here is that when you become a leader, you have the knowledge of what leadership is. And the more I listen to leaders in the community, leaders on the internet, because I love podcasts and listening to what leaders do, and also when they share what they go through, what I realize is that there's a lot of knowing about managing and leading. So first thing here, as for the learners and the teachers, you are to learn the knowledge of what leading is all about. When it's done, then you have a better understanding of what you know of leadership and what it can be. And then you know about leadership, and then you bring your skills, you bring some ideas, and then you realize that you have to be with people. That means that you yourself, you need to take in the idea of what leadership is all about, and then you need to lead. And by leading, you get to better define who you are as a leader in your classroom, in your family, or in your company. And the reason for that is that once you realize, or you better define who you are, then people that are with you are not there for you just for what you know, but they're there for who you are. So in business, often we have the clients that are buying goods and services. But when you think of a brand is when someone is interested in a company or interested in a person, and then they becomes amazing fan for that person or that company. So here, people are there for who you are. But in order for people to see you for who you are, you have to have a good base of who you are yourself. And that takes years. And I think it's a journey that never ends. That's why every time I've talked to leaders, they've always told me that the best way to become a better leader is to lead, but also work with other leaders so that you can learn new ideas, new perspectives, so that you can ultimately master your craft. And from what I know of mastering the craft of leadership is that people need to be surrounded with amazing leaders. The only way to become a better leader is to communicate and be part of a group of amazing leaders. For the same reason, if you're a teacher and you want to become an amazing teacher, be part of a group of amazing teachers. And what will happen is that you'll help each other, and then your craft will get better. For the same thing with learners and students, or if you're a trainee somewhere, a student in university, if you want to become a better student, a better learner, you have to be surrounded by better learners and better students. And indeed, you always have leaders and teachers that can help learners guide themselves to what's best for better learning, better teaching, and better leading. On this, that's basically the topic I have today. And this idea that knowing is great, but just knowing and knowledge is not enough. You need to take that knowledge so that you can become a better version of who you are. And second, you need to be able to use that knowledge and this new understanding of who you are to become the best leader possible in your life, in your community, and in your group. On this, I will wish you an amazing day. If you have any questions, comments, or if you want to share ideas from what you've heard, put them in the comments below. I always read them and answer them. On this, have an amazing day, and I'll see you next Wednesday at this podcast, which is about learning to teach for success. On this, have an amazing day, and I'll see you next week.